tell us a story.
Yes, tell us a story.
Yeah, it's a very, I mean, it's just, I got to clean this off. It's not got too much ice. Most of it's just, whew. But it is bitterly cold this morning. So we'll see if the old rusty bucket will get us in there. And man, is it cold. Well, she started. She didn't want to, but she started begrudgingly. Whew, so I'm going to have to let her warm up a little bit. I've told stories before about fishing and my grandpa and stuff, and there's many, many more. And as I've said before, he used to use a lot of heavy weight, heavy line, huge hooks. I mean, just huge big hooks and stuff. They were ones that you'd like, I mean, you'd fish with sharks for. I mean, you know, he would go out to these creeks and rivers, and he would wind back, and he would throw this heavy, heavy sinker. I mean, they were submarine sinkers. They were as long as your finger, and he'd put 2, if not 3, on them. His philosophy was, I think, that he didn't want to mess with any little fish, and if the fish could pick it up off the bottom, that's the fish he wanted. So he did catch some really big fish, but it was just amazing. There were times that he'd be fishing and other people would be fishing around him. When he would hook into something, or something would start to draw his line out, he would wind up till it was taut, and he would heave like, I mean, he would heave like throwing a baseball, batting a ball. I mean, he would heave, and sometimes he'd pull the line sinker, and if there was a fish on it, completely out of the water. So there was no, oh, I barely got him hooked and got him in. He either had a good hook on him or he didn't. There was this one time that I was off to one side and my dad was off to the other side fishing, and my grandfather started to get a bite, so he tightened his line up. Well, my dad didn't notice him, and my dad went to walk around behind him to come over either to get more bait or into the tackle box or whatever. He got right behind my grandfather just as he heaved, and you could hear that line whiz up out of there, and that sinker, he missed the fish, but he caught my father directly in the chest. My dad went down, holding his chest. He said that he felt like he had just been shot. Those sinker weights hit him directly in the center of the chest so hard. The next day, it was huge black and blue purple mark for the longest time. And it just, it was kind of like combat fishing. You really, really had to be prepared. If you weren't prepared, you better be geared up, because it was just amazing. But like I said, I've seen him catch some awful huge yellow belly cat, silver channel cat, big carp, you know, mostly bottom feeder things. And my dad and I, we would fish for bass and crappie, and we'd do, you know, whatever. I've seen my grandfather hook into turtles that were so big he could just barely get them to the edge of the bank, and they'd start to dig in. Then he'd run out and grab the shells and throw them up onto the bank just to get the turtles and stuff. So he was one of a kind in his philosophy of how to fish and stuff, but he did catch some big ones. Well, let's see if we can get this thing rolling. We'll get into work. We've got some things to do. Let's ride. most part, my grandfather and all of us usually fished off the bank, but my dad and I, we used to like to go out into the boats and everything, and we'd take out the boat. We had small boats, you know, any 10-footer, 12-footers, 14-footers. 16-foot was about as big as we had, the little aluminum fishing boats and everything with very, very small motors on them. But a lot of times, like if it was me and my dad, my grandfather, we'd be out fishing out in the boat. We'd be out someplace, and someplace where you couldn't put anchors down, some places where you could and just let the anchors drag and drift as you would go through the current out on lakes or pretty good-sized rivers and stuff. We'd get fishing, and these guys were always moving around and stuff. Well, I learned when I was a kid, when you went out there, you sat real still, you didn't move because they would yell at you. You know, and they'd always say, Don, quit rocking the boat. Don, quit moving. And I would never be the one moving. But being that kid and in the situation, you couldn't say anything because basically they were in control of the boat. There was one time I didn't go out with them. They went out together and were out for, you know, pretty much all day. And then they came back in. We were sitting around the campfire or whatever. And they started giggling and laughing. And I said, what's wrong? What's the matter? And stuff like that. He goes, my dad told me, he says, well, we were out there and we were fishing and getting bites and stuff like that. And the first thing you know, Paul Sr., which was my grandfather, he yelled out, Don, quit rocking the boat. And my dad said he laughed and giggled a little bit. And then Grandpa turned around and looked. I wasn't even in the boat. So this is the point. I wasn't the one rocking the boat to begin with. It was one of those two all those years, and I had always taken the blame for it. And I said, see? And they both laughed and stuff, but it was nice to know that I finally got confirmation that I wasn't the one rocking the boat. So we're here. We're going to get busy. We got a lot to do today to catch up on. We'll get in there, do that. You do your thing. You be safe. See ya!
Story time is over!
Damn, that was annoying.